Under the twin suns of Varlon Prime, the Galactic Council's Hall of Convergence glimmered like a cathedral forged from light itself. The spires rose high into the smogless sky, each one bristling with banners of 1,000 worlds, every species convinced its emblem meant something profound. Inside, the air was thick with ceremony. Trumpets made of crystal emitted a single harmonious note as the counselors gathered on their levitating platforms, draped in ceremonial armor polished to mirror-like perfection. Their translators clicked in word in 42 dialects, ensuring no insult, however small, went undetected. At the center of this absurd display of interstellar grandeur stood Ambassador Jack Thompson of Earth, his suit slightly wrinkled from the long trip, his tie covered in tiny chili dog patterns only he found amusing. He was 45, sharp-eyed, with a permanent smirk that made him look like he was about to sell you a used car rather than negotiate the fate of planets. Jack had one of those faces that made people trust him instantly and regret it 5 minutes later. He also had the bad habit of quoting movies at inappropriate times, a habit cultivated from growing up on a diet of late-night action flicks and cheap cable reruns. So, Jack muttered into his wristcom as the trumpet blare faded. "This is the big council, huh? Looks like Liberace designed the United Nations." "Ambassador," crackled the voice of his aide back on Earth, "please, for once in your life, be diplomatic." "I'm trying," Jack whispered. "But the guy on the left looks like a disco ball had a baby with a cockroach. That's distracting." The cockroach disco ball hybrid in question was Counselor ZYR of the Phyrexian Dominion, who prided himself on being the galaxy's leading authority on civilized protocol. ZYR's species measured status in the number of ceremonial sashes one could wear without toppling over. He currently wore 11. To him, humans were an upstart species barely worthy of parking privileges, let alone full council membership. Jack stepped onto the central platform, the universal spotlight locking on him. He cleared his throat, ready to deliver the speech Earth's diplomats had spent 3 months drafting. "Honorable counselors," Jack began, voice echoing through the hall, "I come in peace, representing the people of Earth in the spirit of cooperation, trade, and—" ZYR raised one clawed hand. "Silence." The translator rendered the word in English, French, Mandarin, and something that sounded suspiciously like a chicken clucking. Jack blinked. That was fast. Did I hit a nerve? "It is the ancient law," ZYR intoned, his mandibles clacking ominously. "Any who step upon the sacred dais must prove sincerity through the ritual of cleansing flame. It has been so since the dawn of stars." Jack frowned. "Cleansing flame? Like metaphorical flame? Because where I come from, fire's usually bad news unless there are marshmallows involved." The counselors murmured, 100 alien voices buzzing like angry bees. ZYR's translator finally spat out the verdict. He volunteers for the right. Jack blinked again. "Wait, I didn't hold up. Volunteers for what now?" 2 ceremonial guards, towering reptilian creatures with spears tipped in humming energy, stepped forward. The crowd roared approval. A dais in the center cracked open, revealing a column of swirling blue fire that reached toward the ceiling like the finger of some vengeful god. From his ship in orbit, Jack's aide screamed through the comm, "Sir, back away from the fire pit. Back away." But Jack, ever the professional, raised his hands placatingly. "Okay, let's all take a deep breath. I think there's been a—" The guard shoved him into the flames. For one blinding instant, the hall was filled with light so intense it turned the counselors' metallic robes into mirrors. Jack didn't even have time to scream. When the fire receded, nothing remained but a charred silhouette on the platform floor, smoke curling upward like some cosmic punchline. The council erupted in polite applause. "His courage," ZYR announced solemnly, "shall be remembered for at least 3 cycles." Across the galaxy, Earth watched in real time. On every screen, from the Oval Office to a Buffalo Wild Wings in Ohio, people saw their ambassador reduced to ash while aliens clapped like he just won a talent show. Twitter exploded first. #TheyBarbecuedJack trended within minutes. Memes multiplied like tribbles. Jack holding a hot dog caption too soon, a Photoshop movie poster titled Firestarter 2, Galactic Boogaloo. In the Situation Room, the U.S. president rubbed her temples as aides shouted over each other. "They cooked him," one yelled. "Maybe it was an accident," another suggested. "They had an audience, Carl." Across the table, General Rodriguez slammed a fist down. "Ma'am, with respect, they flambéed a U.S. diplomat on live TV. That's not a misunderstanding. That's an act of war." A harried State Department official waved a tablet. The council just released a statement calling it a gesture of highest honor. They're confused why we seem upset. Honor. The president's voice went up an octave. They set him on fire. Outside the White House, protesters gathered with signs reading Avenge Jack and No Justice, No Peace, No Flame Rituals. A conspiracy theorist on YouTube claimed the whole thing was staged by lizard people to distract from rising gas prices. Back on Varlon Prime, Counselor ZYR watched the human news feeds with growing unease. The words retaliation, mobilization, and Florida man in lists kept appearing. This is a misunderstanding, ZYR insisted, though his mandibles clicked nervously. Surely they will not overreact. A junior counselor approached, pale and trembling. They keep broadcasting something called John Wick on all frequencies. The subtitles say, this is a documentary about what happens when you anger humans. ZYR paused. Perhaps we should prepare for. The lights in the council chamber flickered. Somewhere deep in space, hundreds of human warships were warming up their engines, pilots slipping on aviator sunglasses even though half of them were indoors. Earth had just collectively decided diplomacy was overrated. And as the first human fleet launched toward the stars, a single message pinged across every alien communication channel in the galaxy. You had one chance to play nice. The Pentagon had not been this loud since the Cuban Missile Crisis, or so one veteran claimed as he clutched his coffee like it was holy water. Phones rang, screens flashed red, and someone in the back yelled, "They barbecued our diplomat for the 10th time in 30 minutes. At the center of the chaos, General Rodriguez stood like a granite statue with a buzz cut, a man who looked as if he'd been carved from pure bad decisions and black coffee. He stared at the holographic projection of the Galactic Council fleet orbiting Varlon Prime, his jaw grinding like an overworked engine. "Ladies and gentlemen," he growled, "this is no longer a negotiation. This is payback." Beside him, Dr. Ellen Park adjusted her glasses nervously. She was the head of NASA's Advanced Propulsion Division, which until this morning had been a polite science department mostly ignored by the military. Now her blueprints for experimental starships were getting waved around by people quoting Top Gun and Starship Troopers. "General," she said carefully, "I must remind you our warp drive prototypes have never actually been tested outside simulations." Rodriguez grinned, a grin that made interns scatter. "Then today's a great day for a test flight document." Over in Houston, the launch crews were losing their collective minds. Half the engineers were digging old Apollo guidance systems out of museums because someone in Washington had screamed the words, "We need rockets," yesterday. The other half were bolting railguns onto anything bigger than a minivan. Elon Musk had already tweeted a photo of a Tesla Roadster with twin plasma cannons mounted on the hood and the caption, "Space Force 2.0 baby." In orbit, the newly christened USS Payback was taking shape, a Frankenstein's monster of Earth engineering. Its core was a nuclear carrier retrofitted with alien tech stolen from Area 51, wrapped in layers of experimental armor that looked suspiciously like welded-together water heaters. The crew had painted no step on SNEK across the hull in bright yellow. Inside the mess hall, soldiers prepared for the first interstellar war in human history by playing Doom on every screen they could find. Sergeant O'Malley, a square-jawed Marine with a Boston accent thick enough to require subtitles, leaned on the counter and announced, "I call dibs on the Schwarzenegger rifle." Private Kim frowned. "The what now?" "The big plasma one," O'Malley said, pointing. "Looks like it eats smaller guns for breakfast. Gonna name it Commando." From the corner, a pilot called out, "I'm naming my fighter Maverick." Because obviously. General Rodriguez entered, killing the chatter instantly. He surveyed the room, the soldiers, the hastily modified weapons racks, the whole beautiful mess of it, and said, "Listen up. They wanted war. We're bringing them America." The first wave launched 3 hours later. The Payback led the charge, its engines roaring like angry gods as it tore free of Earth's gravity. Pilots in repurposed SpaceX fighters checked weapon systems while classic rock blared over the comm channels. Someone had hacked the fleet's intercom so that every time missiles armed, the words "Danger Zone" played automatically. On the bridge, Dr. Park gripped her console as the warp drive spun up. "I can't believe this is happening," she muttered. Rodriguez stood beside her, arms crossed. "Believe it, document. We're about to introduce the galaxy to shock and awe." The fleet ripped into faster-than-light travel, a tunnel of stars bending around them like they'd punched reality in the face. Minutes later, they dropped out above Varlon Prime, weapons hot, targeting systems screaming. The Galactic Council fleet hovered in perfect ceremonial formation, gleaming ships shaped like swans and crescents and delicate sculptures of alien artistry. Not a single one had real armor. After all, no one had fought a war in this sector for centuries. The Council ships bristled with banners, diplomatic beacons, and ornate figureheads carved from rare gemstones. Rodriguez grinned wolfishly. Pretty. Shame about what's going to happen to it. The first salvo came from the Payback's forward railguns. Tungsten slugs screamed through vacuum at impossible speeds, punching through the lead Council ship like it was made of wet cardboard. The vessel erupted in a blossom of fire and glittering metal, debris scattering like confetti. On the comms, alien voices shrieked in disbelief. They brought kinetic weapons. Who does that? Another Council ship tried to raise shields, but accidentally deployed its ceremonial fireworks instead. Bright pink sparkles exploded harmlessly in space as a second railgun round cored the vessel from bow to stern. Human pilots hooped as missiles streaked toward targets, playing Fortunate Son over open channels just to add insult to injury. In the chaos, one alien commander sputtered, "Why are they playing music? What is napalm in the morning?" Back on Earth, the live feed spread across every news channel. Crowds in Times Square cheered as Council ships burned on screens the size of buildings. Someone held up a sign reading "Free Galactic Wi-Fi or else." Inside the Council chamber, panic reigned. ZYR clutched his 11 ceremonial sashes like they were life preservers. They are barbarians. Absolute barbarians. A junior officer ran in, panting. "Sir, they just destroyed the Honor Guard fleet." "Impossible. Those ships are for parades." "Exactly, sir." On the Payback, Rodriguez watched another alien cruiser detonate, pieces spinning into Varlon Prime's atmosphere. He felt a grim satisfaction, but there was no smile this time. "Send the message," he ordered. A calm officer nodded. Moments later, every screen in the galaxy lit up with the same broadcast, the USS Payback drifting before the burning wreckage of the Council fleet, General Rodriguez standing like doom itself behind the podium. "We didn't start this," he said, voice cold as vacuum. "But we'll finish it. Surrender, or the next targets won't be ships." For a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Counselors argued, civilians screamed, distant empires recalculated their odds of survival. Somewhere deep in alien territory, a warlord watching the feed leaned back in his throne and muttered, "Maybe we backed the wrong species." Rodriguez didn't wait for their answer. "Prep the ground forces," he told his crew. "If they want to drag this out, we'll bring the whole damn planet to heel." As the Payback's engines flared and the human fleet reformed for another strike, one thing became clear across 1,000 star systems: humanity wasn't bluffing. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The galaxy had not experienced chaos like this in 10,000 years. Not since the cyber-locust plague of Zarna 7, or the time someone left the quantum sun gate open during a wedding. Yet neither of those disasters involved humans, and as alien historians would later write with trembling appendages, that made all the difference. The burning wreckage of the Council fleet now drifted above Varlon Prime, sparks of molten metal still cascading through its atmosphere like vengeful shooting stars. Across the galaxy, broadcast feeds replayed the same horrifying yet oddly cinematic footage, human warships cutting through ceremonial cruisers while blasting music with lyrics that translated poorly into alien languages. Entire species watched in disbelief as words like Danger Zone and Highway to Hell scrolled across their screens in flaming block letters. On the bridge of the USS Payback, General Rodriguez surveyed the carnage with the expression of a man who had just started a bar fight and was waiting for someone to swing back. Around him, officers moved with purpose, their consoles alive with tactical readouts, intercepted transmissions, and the occasional meme flashing across unsecured channels from Earth. Dr. Ellen Park, pale and visibly shaken, leaned over the comm station. "General, we're receiving. I don't even know what this is. Half the Council worlds are screaming for help, the other half are trying to surrender, and someone named the Screed. Hive wants to know if we can send them episodes of Seinfeld in exchange for fuel." Rodriguez didn't look up from the tactical display. "Tell the Screed we'll throw in friends too, if they stop shooting at us." That single transmission changed the entire shape of the war. Within hours, the Skreeg Hive, an insectoid species with a weakness for sitcom laugh tracks, switched sides, their massive carrier ships now painting human slogans across their hulls. "No soup for you" in glowing neon letters above missile ports. Other species followed. The reptilian Drava clans, longtime council mercenaries, were shown Rocky IV by human marines during a ceasefire. By the final fight scene, the Drava warlord stood on his throne screaming, "If Rocky can change, we can change," and promptly ordered his fleets to join humanity's crusade. Not everyone was so easily swayed. The core council worlds, ancient and proud, saw humanity's advance as the rise of chaos incarnate. Their fleets rallied from distant sectors, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons older than human civilization itself. But for all their power, they could not comprehend human tactics. On the third day of the war, the Council launched a coordinated strike on the Payback using stealth ships designed to be invisible to standard sensors. Humanity found them immediately because a Navy IT officer noticed the ships were broadcasting unsecured Bluetooth signals named Council Stealth 01. The ambush ended with the Council's flagship colliding with its own carrier after human hackers changed every navigation system in the fleet to display the words "You are here" over random coordinates. "They fight like madmen," whispered Counselor ZYR, watching another defeat unfold on the hollow map inside the battered council chamber. His ceremonial sashes were gone, replaced by emergency armor plates, though he still insisted on keeping the hat. No doctrine, no order. They weaponized chaos itself. A trembling aide handed him a data pad. "Sir, there's more." The screen showed humans on a captured moon base, repairing an alien plasma cannon with duct tape and what looked suspiciously like chewing gum. Moments later, the same cannon fired on the Council fleet chasing them, scoring 3 direct hits before exploding because someone had labeled the self-destruct button "Do Not Press." Back on the Payback, Sergeant O'Malley was busy teaching captured alien soldiers how to play poker. "Best way to understand humanity," he explained while shuffling cards. "War, bluffing, and occasionally flipping the whole table when things go south." Private Kim leaned against the bulkhead nearby, watching alien recruits awkwardly salute Rodriguez. "Sir, I think we accidentally started an interspecies revolution." Rodriguez allowed himself the faintest smile. "Good. Maybe they'll aim at the right people for once." But the Council was not beaten yet. From the Galactic core came their ultimate weapon, the Planet Cracker 9000, a moon-sized battle station bristling with enough firepower to sterilize continents. It emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare-given shape, its engines glowing with the light of captive stars. Council propaganda announced its arrival with dramatic fanfare, promising humanity's imminent annihilation. On its command deck, Admiral Phyrexian gloated to the cameras. "Behold the instrument of your extinction. No world can withstand its wrath." Back on the Payback, human officers stared at the broadcast in silence. Finally, Dr. Park spoke. "That thing could destroy Earth in one shot." Rodriguez cracked his knuckles. "Then we'll take it before they use it." The plan was reckless even by human standards, a boarding assault using captured Council shuttles disguised as surrender craft. Marines painted the words "totally not a trap" on the hulls in alien script, counting on the Council's arrogance to let them land. It worked. Within an hour, O'Malley and his squad were rampaging through the Planet Cracker's corridors, blasting Born to be wild over the station's intercom, while bewildered aliens fled in every direction. Private Kim reached the command deck first, aiming her plasma rifle at Admiral Phyrexian as he tried desperately to trigger the main weapon. "Step away from the doomsday button," she said calmly. Phyrexian hissed, "You wouldn't dare fire this station." Kim shrugged. "Buddy, we invented Florida. We'll press anything." 10 minutes later, the Planet Cracker 9000's main cannon accidentally discharged, directly into the largest remaining Council fleet massing above Varlon Prime. Half their armada vanished in a single apocalyptic blast visible from orbit. On the Payback, Rodriguez watched the explosion silently. Humanity now possessed the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, entirely by accident. Dr. Park sat down heavily beside him. "General, do we even know how to turn that thing off?" He didn't answer. The comms were already lighting up with terrified Council worlds offering surrender, tribute, or in one case, lifetime pizza supplies if Earth promised not to point the cannon at them next. For the first time since the war began, Rodriguez allowed himself a real smile. "Send word to every corner of the galaxy," he said. "Earth holds the big stick now." But even as cheers erupted across human and newly allied fleets, far beyond the edges of known space, a different signal stirred, one not from the Council, nor any species the galaxy had yet encountered. Something else had been watching, and it had just taken interest in humanity. The planet Cracker 9000 loomed over Varlon Prime like a second malevolent moon, its titanic cannon still cooling from the shot that had erased half the Council fleet. Flames and debris drifted silently through orbit while across the galaxy, worlds that once viewed Earth as an upstart civilization now watched with the kind of terror usually reserved for comets on collision courses. Humanity had gone from newcomer to nightmare in less than a week, and General Rodriguez knew the war was ending, not with a treaty, but with whoever was left alive to sign one. Inside the command deck of the USS Payback, the air was thick with the smell of scorched circuits and victory. Marines celebrated in the hangar below, trading captured alien helmets and retelling the story of how Private Kim had single-handedly wrestled the Planet Cracker's control codes from Admiral Phyrexian while blasting Eye of the Tiger over the loudspeakers. Yet amid the cheers, Rodriguez stood at the central console, his expression unreadable as he studied the tactical map. Council forces are in full retreat, Dr. Ellenpark reported, her voice tight with exhaustion. We've received surrender offers from 17 worlds, 2 trade leagues, and sir, the Skreeg Hive wants exclusive distribution rights for human television across their territories. Rodriguez didn't look up. Tell them they can have Seinfeld, but the X-Files stays on Earth. Beside him, Sergeant O'Malley leaned on his plasma rifle like it was a bar counter. So what now, General? We point the giant death laser at their capital and make 'em cry uncle. Rodriguez didn't answer immediately. He was watching the Planet Cracker's system readouts flicker on the display, alien code streaming alongside hurried human translations. The station was unimaginably powerful, yes, but also unstable. Its power core barely contained sun-wrapped in layers of technology Earth scientists were still reverse engineering with equal parts genius and duct tape. They'll sign the treaty, Rodriguez said finally, because they've seen what we can do. But we need to be careful. Careful? O'Malley snorted. Sir, with respect, we just conquered half the galaxy by accident. Before Rodriguez could reply, the comm officer turned. Incoming transmission, sir. It's the Council. The holographic projectors flared to life, revealing Counselor ZYR himself, no longer clad in ceremonial sashes, but in battered armor plates, his mandibles twitching nervously. Behind him, the once mighty Council chamber was in chaos, lights flickering, aides shouting, smoke curling from distant fires. Humans, ZYR began, voice trembling despite its attempt at dignity, the Galactic Council acknowledges your, military superiority. We propose an immediate cessation of hostilities and recognition of Earth as a sovereign power with full Council privileges. Rodriguez stared at him for a long moment. Unconditional surrender, he said flatly. ZYR hesitated. Perhaps some conditions. O'Malley leaned into the camera, grinning like a wolf. Buddy, the only condition is you stop setting our ambassadors on fire. The counselor flinched. Agreed. Rodriguez folded his arms. Then here are Earth's terms: free interstellar travel rights, access to Council technology, trade routes through all sectors. And one more thing, Earth will lead the new Council, not as junior members, as the top seat. Gasps erupted behind ZYR. Someone shouted in protest until Rodriguez casually rotated the Planet Cracker in their direction, its main cannon humming ominously. The protester sat down immediately. Accepted, ZYR said quickly, sweat, or whatever his species produced, glistening across his carapace. The treaty was signed an hour later aboard the Payback, a scene broadcast across every star system. Human soldiers stood beside alien delegates as holographic cameras captured history, the moment Earth became the dominant power in the galaxy. Yet even as pens scratched and datapads blinked confirmations, something darker brewed beneath the celebration. Dr. Park cornered Rodriguez after the ceremony, her face pale. General, we've been analyzing the Planet Cracker's logs. Someone, or something, was transmitting during the battle. Not from Council space. From beyond the rim. Rodriguez frowned. Survivors? No. A signal. Short bursts, repeating every few minutes. We can't translate it, but it wasn't aimed at us. It was aimed outward. Like a beacon. O'Malley overheard, his grin fading. You saying we just rang the dinner bell for something worse? Before Park could answer, the Planet Cracker's proximity alarms blared. On the tactical map, a new contact appeared at the edge of the system, massive, cold, and moving with precision that set every instinct on edge. It wasn't Council tech. It wasn't anything in the database at all. Rodriguez watched the blip glide closer, its sheer size dwarfing even the planet cracker. How long until it reaches us? Minutes, Park whispered. For the first time since the war began, the command deck went silent. Soldiers who had joked for missile strikes and dogfights now stared at the screen as the unknown vessel crossed into visual range. It was unlike anything they'd seen, angular, obsidian black, swallowing starlight rather than reflecting it, covered in shifting patterns that made the eyes ache if you stared too long. The Council delegation panicked immediately. "It's them," one alien gasped. "The precursors. The ones who vanished before we even crawled from the mud." Rodriguez felt the deck tremble as the alien supership halted just beyond weapons range. No transmissions, no threats. It simply waited, vast and silent, like a predator deciding whether the noise in its territory was worth investigating. O'Malley gripped his rifle tightly. "General, please tell me we're not about to fight whatever that is with duct tape and classic rock." Rodriguez said nothing. His eyes were locked on the tactical display, on the single blinking icon representing a power none of them understood. They had won the war. Earth ruled the galaxy. And yet, as the mysterious vessel drifted closer, its shadow swallowing the stars, one truth settled over the bridge like falling ash. The real fight might only be beginning.